and first virtual Beaver Falls Lecture Series. This event obviously looks different this year than it has in the past, but we're super thankful for the ability to still host this event. And I want to thank the many people who are involved in creating this event this evening. First of all, the Beaver Falls Community Development Corporation has a lecture series committee that has worked really hard to try to come up with a way to do this event during COVID, and we're really thankful just for the thought and effort they've put into this. City House is a living learning community downtown Beaver Falls for Geneva College students, and they financially sponsor this event every year, so we're really thankful for their ongoing support. And this year, West Banco and the Beaver Falls Recreation Board has also contributed financially to this event, so we're really thankful for that. Tonight we have with us Human City Creative and the Social Voice Project, who are doing all of the video and tech work to make this live stream possible. We're really thankful for their presence and their expertise. And even though this is really different, we still get to stream this from the Carnegie Free Library, and so we're so thankful for them in opening up their space again this year to us. Finally, thank you for joining us for this session. We hope that you're in a comfortable spot, either in your living room, maybe with something to drink, or maybe sitting down to dinner. Feel free to comment any questions that you have for our speakers at any point during the video, and we'll try to get to those at the end. The way that this is going to work is we're going to ask our speakers to each share for 5 to 10 minutes each, and then we'll do like a kind of conversation question style. So hopefully you're aware, but the theme for this year is, the title is Stronger Together, Beaver Falls Amidst the Pandemic. We essentially wanted to address the elephant in the room, the pandemic that has been affecting us for a full year now. It actually interrupted our lecture series last year, so this is like the year marker this week. We wanted to create a space for people for our community to kind of share and hear how the pandemic has been affecting different people on a personal level, professional level, in different areas, and kind of the community as a whole. So that's what we're asking our speakers to share with us. We hope that it's informative and maybe provides all of us with a sense of, I'm not the only one who's exhausted, or I'm not the only one who's like really struggling right now, especially tonight as we're kind of talking from a mental health perspective. So hopefully that it's encouraging and maybe gives us some idea of how we can move forward together as a community in this just really crazy upside down time. So both our speakers tonight work in the mental health field. We have Tonette Whitted with us tonight. She is a lifelong Beaver Falls resident and a licensed professional counselor with over 10 years of experience in the mental health field. She currently works for a private practice called Cognitive Behavior Institute since November 2017. She has a Bachelor of Science in Psychology and a Master's of Education with a focus in counselor education and marriage and family therapy. She has extensive experience working with individuals, couples, children, and families with a wide range of issues such as anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, eating disorders, family reunification, and identity development. And she's expressed that she's really dedicated to providing effective and practical tools that will encourage transformation for those she serves. She specializes in the work of people and building up the whole person. So she considers herself outside the box in making sure treatment is tailored to each individual and their needs. And she really values helping individuals dig deep and talk about hard subjects in order to embrace change. She's passionate about seeing individuals exceed their goals and ultimately grow within the therapeutic process. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
We also have Angela Manno with us. She is also a lifelong resident of Beaver Falls. She currently works for the Big Beaver Falls Area School District at the high school. She's worked there for 24 years as a Title I math specialist, the district's Title I coordinator, and a 6th grade teacher. And for the past 10 years, she's been one of the school counselors. She has her Bachelor's of Science in Elementary Education, her Master's in Secondary Guidance and School Counseling, as well as her Principal Certification. She also serves as the girls' tennis coach and sponsors the school's Leo Club, the SAD chapter, and the Youth Ambassadors program. Locally, she serves as treasurer on the Beaver Falls Recreation Board and on the executive board of the Beaver Falls Lion Club. And she's been described as extremely enthusiastic about supporting young people, and her ties to the community have always been beneficial. So thank you as well for being with us.
Thank you.
I've asked Tonette to share with us first, and she's gonna give a brief talk. Angela will give a brief talk, and if at any point you have questions, you can type them, comment them on the video, and we will follow up and have like a bit of a discussion afterwards. So take it away for us.
Well, thanks again for having me today. This is probably one of the first times I've been out to talk with other people outside of my Zooms at home, so I'm appreciative of this opportunity. And so I've been tasked to kind of talk about my experience as a mental health professional, personally, professionally, and what I've seen as a community. And when I think about the pandemic, go back 365 days last year, and we were all abruptly told, basically go home. I feel like from the mental health perspective, what I noticed is that we were all forced into like this isolatory place and basically faced to deal with whatever came about, whether that meant, hey, I noticed that there's a leak that hasn't been fixed in a while, or hey, this needs done, or doing this internal work. I feel like a lot of people had to face some things that we weren't necessarily dealing with during that time. And I think it was a scary time for a lot of people, a confusing time. I won't say the word exciting because what happened was not exciting, but I think we thought it was only 2 weeks that we would be locked down, and then it ended up being how long, and then summer came and we were free. But looking at it from a community perspective, and also I think just global and nationally, I think the one thing that always stood out to me was my students in therapy. So I meet kids probably 16 and up into adulthood, and I think they were hit the hardest, I noticed, in therapy with, what am I supposed to do? How do I study from home? And their parents, I'm doing therapy with both of them. The mom is like, I can't do math. And the sons and daughters are like, well, mom's not helping and I can't get through on the internet. And I think for me, what I've seen is that students and teachers and parents suffered the most during the pandemic. And I'm just trying to support them in any kind of way. I'm trying to do math homework sometimes for therapy. And I'm like, you should not be asking me because I cannot help you. But I think that abrupt change and transition that we weren't ready for, it was very hard to adjust to. But one of the things that stood out the most to me, and it's not that I didn't recognize this the entire pandemic, but when we went to Christmas time and people started to get a little comfortable because we needed to go shopping and malls were packed. And I remember Governor Wolf instituted another lockdown. And I remember it hit me all of a sudden like, oh my God, what are parents going to do that relied like on the restaurant industry or the bar industry for tips? And I remember I just cried. I'm like, kids aren't going to have gifts this year, or things are going to not happen for them. And I know that that's what the whole pandemic was for a lot of people, but for some reason, the holidays stuck out the most to me. And maybe because I was already emotional, because I caught COVID like 4 days before Christmas and had to spend it alone, which I threw my tree in the garden. I was upset by that, but I think for me as a community, and just speaking of Beaver Falls and the nation, like that, the emphasis on family and how that impacted them, I think that impacted me as a therapist. Professionally, what I noticed the most was, of course, being thrown into virtual sessions. And we were talking about that briefly before we got on. The dynamic is definitely different for us therapists who are used to, I hug clients, I'm very touchy. I'm like, hey, can I shake your hand? Can we sit and breathe and do these techniques together? And to kind of be forced to be behind this screen has felt slightly impersonal, but it's still, I'm grateful for it, that we have it. But I think that dynamic in person of being able to see how someone, hey, you're saying one thing, but your body language is saying something differently, that dynamic is sort of missing because I'm looking at you from the neck up. I don't know what's happening underneath. And I think for me, that's been the most challenging part of it. But what I've noticed, and I think other therapists can attest to this, I would say the most I've done therapy with has been with depression and anxiety and lack of self-care for a lot of people. With depression, people are experiencing isolation. People are alone, especially if you don't have family or people that you're staying with. People are bored and feeling like they have no one to talk to, which can lead to lack of motivation. And, well, what's the point of doing this if I'm just getting up to do the same routine? And I've heard that over and over again of, I just can't do what I'm supposed to do. I'm lacking in work, or I'm lacking in my schoolwork. And obviously the whole world was anxious, right? Everyone's fearful of, I'm terrified to go outside because if I go outside, do I catch it? And if I catch it, what do I do? And how do I feel like we've just been navigating, how do we protect yourself going to the grocery store? How do we just cope with, you have to do this and go out for your grandmother, things like that. I think just the fear of the unknown, we've been just trying to cope with throughout this. And if I'm honest, and I hope this is not offensive, but I feel like medical healthcare workers, therapists, and the administrators and teachers in school, I think we've been keeping the world alive right through here. And I think it's a thankless job, not that we're asking to be thanked, but burnout is real. And so speaking like personally, I preach self-care to all of my clients, literally day in and day out. I'm like, and self-care doesn't just mean getting your nails done or going to the spa. It means sometimes creating structure or saying no, putting your laptop away because you know you can't do anymore. Or maybe you do need to open your mail that you didn't open from a month ago so that you're not anxious because you don't know of a surprise bill or something like that. That people weren't doing throughout the pandemic. I think everybody's just burnt out in general of just like, we're sick of this, we're sick of the news. And then not only did we have the pandemic, but we had all this racial riot, you know, all of that was, I think we're tired. I think we're just kind of done and exasperated. And so I noticed for me in therapy, I did more hands-on techniques than I ever did in my office. Like, you know, we would do role playing and stuff there, but virtually I noticed I'm like, okay, put your camera down. We're gonna do this together. Let's deep breathe, or let's do some grounding techniques. I find myself doing those so much more now because I feel like there's an immediate need for anxiety to be decreased or for depression or whatever it might be. And then when it came to myself, how I've been impacted, as I talk about self-care, I'm like, I learned TikTok like at the very beginning of the pandemic. And when I tell you, I was up to like 3 and 4 in the morning most nights, and I'm like, dude, like I know like you don't have to go anywhere, but you still have to get up for work. And so I would find myself like I started to live a very unhealthy lifestyle of just wake up and go downstairs, no longer putting on a nice top. You know, for Zoom, it's like a hoodie now. This is what you're getting. And the refrigerator's right there. So it's so very easy to be like, you know what, hold on a second. Can I go get a drink of water and a bag of chips? And I started to notice I didn't feel good staying at home all of that time. And so for me, I started working out. That was like my self-care kind of tendency in creating a structure. So everyone thinks I'm crazy, but I literally get up at 4:30 in the morning and I drive to Pittsburgh to a personal trainer to work out. You're right, everybody thinks I'm crazy. At 6 a.m. And then I feel like when I do that on those days, I am so much more productive, so much more just kind of in tune. Like it's like 9 o'clock and I'm like, hey, how are things going? What do you want to talk about? They're like, why are you so hyper? I'm like, well, I've been up for like 4 hours working out and doing that. But I think for me, that's been what's helped me to be able to really preach to my clients, like, I'm doing this, so what can you do that works for your lifestyle? And I'll close on this and let you ask us questions. The one thing I have told my clients throughout this that I have noticed as a positive, I have seen more success in the pandemic with clients getting better than I did in the office setting before a pandemic. So like at my clients, when they have these dark days or these days where they're like, what's the point? I'm like, listen, I can give you story after story after story of someone that started in June and I don't even see them anymore, or they just stop in to check in because they've done the work or they found that skills are working for them. And that's kind of like what I hold on to, that I'm seeing progress, even though we're in the unknown still, but people are getting better, you know. So that's been my experience.
Wow, that's really hard for me to not ask questions right now. So, thank you so much for sharing.
Oh,
We're
absolutely.
gonna turn to Angela.
Maybe I should have went first.
I gave you the option.
I know. The pandemic, how it's affected me was, like Tonette said, a year ago, it started March 13th. We were told, you know, we're going home for a week. We had to come back on that Tuesday and we'll know more. Well, then we had to pack up things and I'm a guidance counselor. So I'm like, what do I pack? Like, how do I reach out to kids? So I'm like, okay, get a list of your students, get a list of phone numbers, like get your notebook, make sure you have a laptop, like get things that you can reach out to these kids. And so, you know, March 13th, I'll never forget that day, 2000. And, you know, so we come back on that Tuesday and they're like, okay, we're, you know, going to be closed for a couple weeks. We don't know what's going on. So I'm like, wow, how, you know, get packets ready. The teachers had to get packets for kids. Every kid doesn't have a laptop. Who doesn't have, you know, internet? Try to reach out to the kids, let them know what's going on, who made phone calls. You know, we had to do everything just to do what's best for the kids and the academics. And, you know, we're going on, it's senior year, it's March, you know, scholarship time, getting kids ready for college, getting them prepared, graduation, and that's just seniors. That's not juniors, that's not sophomores, not freshmen. You know, we still have all these other kids to worry about. I remember just sitting in my new office was my bedroom and just calling the seniors and juniors. I called every one of my students did the best I could do, getting a hold of them, making sure they're doing work, if they needed anything, if there was anything I could do, sending out scholarships, taking snapshots with my phone so I can scan them in, sending them the scholarships, meeting them on Tiger Alley. Scholarships are due. We need the scholarships. Give me what you can get, do as much as you can. Of course, at that point, they were doing scholarships and trying to do their studies online. We tried to get kids computers, trying to get them on the internet who didn't have internet. Letting them know, thank goodness Verizon had the $9.99, whatever that was, special for students and families who couldn't afford the internet. I mean, that was just last year, trying to get them they had to cancel the prom. We had to come up with a new way of coming up with graduation because we couldn't have it, our typical graduation in the middle school. That's all tradition. Beaver Falls is tradition, whether it's graduation, prom, everything. The city's tradition. We're tradition. We like to follow tradition. And it was just, the pandemic hit and everything just fell through. Meeting kids and doing the best we could. Thank goodness, we would have an academic assembly. We couldn't do that. We couldn't have our honors assembly. We had to just let the kids know via email or calling them and, congratulating them on Facebook if they won a scholarship, which was sad because they lost out on so much. So we thought, class of 2020, we did adopt a senior, made baskets for them if they were, every senior who graduated. I sent postcards out to all my seniors, telling them they can do it. I have faith in them, just push through, do as much as they can, just everything, because I wanted them to know I was still there. I cared. They might not see me, but, I was there, and whatever they needed, they can get a hold of me. I had no idea how to do a Zoom meeting, no idea what to do.
Had no idea what that was.
I didn't. I had no clue. Last year, this time, you couldn't tell me what it was. I was very lucky if I even knew how to open one up, even try to attempt to open one up. Even how to run a Google Classroom, no idea. You ask me now, I can do it because we got trained. We had no choice in the matter. Fast forward now till beginning of school year, I had the summer, affected me, my mom, I have an 82-year-old mother, can't take her out, can't do anything. I have to make sure, I was the one. I ran to the store, I, got all the groceries, I helped her friend out who we didn't want her to go out. That affected me personally because I had to watch where I went. I mean, not that I went anywhere, it was just grocery store and home. Couldn't do anything else because I was afraid of affecting her. Didn't want her to get, the pandemic, just got to watch everything. No family came around, didn't see my aunts, didn't see my cousins, that's the whole summer. Even though they lifted some things, still didn't do anything because you just don't want to affect anyone. Come school year comes around, we didn't know what was going on. We go to the hybrid model where kids come in 2 days a week. One group comes in 2 days. We have Wednesdays we work from home. And then the other 2 days, another group comes in. 2 days a week, kids are coming in. It is so hard. That is not me. I'm a guidance counselor. I want to see my kids. I want to work with them. You can't reach these kids who might need the help. My office is a revolving door. Kids are always coming in my office to come see me, ask me questions. They need help. Just if they're having a bad day, they come in and they see me. I can't have it, it was like, can I have a kid in my office? Am I allowed to have a kid in my office? Those were all the questions. How do I do this? Sometimes I have 2 kids in my office. I can't do that anymore. So it's 1 kid at a time. Finally, I'm allowed to have a kid in my office. And, if a kid signs up for me, and I can't see them on a Monday because it's busy or we're covering classes or, things are come up, I have to hope that kid is there on that Tuesday. That kid does not show up on that Tuesday, I can't see them until the following week. So it's so hard when they're just coming in for 2 days. And then, we have another group the next 2 days. So it's like, I feel like I haven't seen these kids. And then I normally know all of my kids. I feel like I don't know all of my sophomores because I was only with that freshman group part of the year last year. And then the freshmen this year. I don't know all of them because who's staying home, because they have that option of staying home and getting synchronized learning where the teachers are teaching online and in the classroom, or who's coming in for 2 days. So it's like, I feel like I can't do my job the way I want to do my job because of this pandemic. And it's sad. And then come holiday time, the kids weren't there from after Thanksgiving until February. And they lost all that time. And we felt so bad about last year's seniors. I feel so bad for this year's seniors. I think they're missing out on so much more. They did have a homecoming. Hopefully they'll have a prom, but there's no school dances. They haven't had a chance to, do anything a normal senior could do, or any of the students really. They couldn't go to football games, basketball games they can't go to. The students can have their sports, but there's no spectators. The only spectators are their parents. It's nice that some people can go, but there's no school. It feels like there's no school spirit. That's not Beaver Falls. Beaver Falls is tradition. Beaver Falls is school spirit. It feels like the pandemic has just put a freeze or a hold on everything in the school, in the town. It's like, you try to have normalcy, and there is no normalcy in the school with the kids, with my job, and it's just not the same. Kids need structure, kids need that normalcy, and they don't have it. Kids are choosing, they have that option to come back to school the 2 days or to stay at home. Well, of course they're in a routine of staying home. Why not roll out of bed? Right. They don't have to put, and get on the computer. They do have to show their face, but they don't have to get dressed. They don't have to, they do now they have to report to their classes at certain periods, so there is that little bit of structure. But they don't have to get up earlier to get on a bus or to walk to school, or to eat lunch, or they don't get to see their friends, which that I think is terrible, because they're losing all that socialization, which turns into depression, which turns into there's that anxiety, and then the ones that are in school, they're not having that normalcy of, they can't stand, and Tonette, the way the school is, it's a big square, you have the railing. They can't stand by the rails this year. Wow. So there's a railing, and if you stand, I went to the high school. So if you stand at the rail on the second floor, you can see your friends standing at the rail on the third floor and wave, hey, how you doing? If you don't have any classes with them. There's nothing, they can't do that because you have to have social distancing, you have to stay away. So you don't even have that. Like the steps are back to going up one way, down the other way. Because we have to keep social distancing, which is awesome because that keeps the numbers down, so there's no COVID, there's no one with COVID, so, which is great. That's what we need. We need the social distancing. But it's just like, it's not the same. The kids can't be kids during this pandemic, which it just makes me sad because, we can't even stand in the at the hallway around the rails and be like, hey, so-and-so, come here, I need you, and can't even do that if we wanted to because social distancing and stuff. So it's sad because there's just, the kids are losing their structure. There's no normalcy. There's no socialization. They're losing that. And then you think about where are these kids, they're suffering in grades because they're not doing, some aren't doing the work because they don't understand. And then, some have to stay home because if they have sick parents and then they can't come in. So, and that's understandable. So, or they have younger siblings that are all on the same schedule they have to stay home because the parents have to go to work. So it's a catch-22 there too. So it's just like this, the pandemic has affected just the whole thing. Like I said, the structure of normalcy, it affected the holidays, in my life, not seeing family. I mean, big Italian family, you can't get together with anybody. Couldn't see anyone. And that's just not the way it was. It didn't feel like Christmas. And I know I'm jumping around, but it's just like, it was terrible. Just didn't seem right. And I feel like I personally can't do my job the way I want to and hit every kid the way I want to, because I'm like you. If a kid is crying and down and out, and they're like, I just need a hug, you want to be able to give them a hug or a tap, tap on the shoulder. It's okay, your arm around them and say, it's okay, you'll be okay. And you can't do that with COVID. You just can't. Right. It's sad.
I feel like you've both talked a lot about, the challenges feel kind of like endless, both on a personal level and professional level. Could you talk a little bit about who's been your personal support system in this past year? What does that look like? And I guess the importance of that for functioning in this time.
I would definitely say family and friends. We've all been very, very careful. I think I was the first to catch COVID we had a cousin. So let's just go backwards. So my family, we spend time together. We spend holidays together. And so summertime came, I think, and we all were like, well, we can have a bonfire and things outside. But before that, none of us had really seen each other, except my immediate, my siblings, my dad, my aunt, and we had a brand new niece who was born literally in February. So we were all seeing her, and then all of that stopped abruptly. But once it got to spring, we were able to see each other. Friends I didn't see for quite some time, but FaceTime and Google Duo was probably overdone by us because that's what we do. Because I felt like if I didn't, I would have went crazy. My dad, I wouldn't let him go into grocery stores. So I would do all of his shopping, or he would do Instacart, but I would take him for a ride every day, especially that first 3 months where you couldn't go anywhere. Because I think my dad was like, I'm going stir crazy. And I'm like, well, I'll take you for a ride, and then my brother will take you for a ride. Because I feel like if we didn't have that, I would have just been sitting in a house by myself with my dog looking at the Zoom and looking at Netflix, because that's all that was happening, at that beginning. So I feel like for me, that was my biggest support. That and my friends, us complaining, us venting about what was happening and having family is what kind of kept me going. And my clients, I can't say that. Even though it's therapy, it's still I'm constantly engaged and interacting with someone on a daily basis for my job. So those three things were supportive for me.
I'm going to have to piggyback on Tonette and say my mom and my family also, because my mom and I have 3 older sisters and 2 nephews and a niece and a brother-in-law. So just my family, because we're all close and nobody really, nobody went anywhere, and we all live like my mom lives with me, and then my sisters all live in the area. So by the time Easter, we didn't get together. But after Easter and when it was summertime, we all went to my sister's. My sister has a pool, so we all just kind of sat outside and did that. But it was basically my mom and my family. And friends.
Do you guys remember Easter? We had an Easter?
We had Easter, but it was it was nothing. I cooked. I know I cooked for my mom and me, and I know I made a ham and I cut the ham, and my one sister came down and I gave her, we shared, you know what I mean, divvied up everything. It was nobody got together because it was so close to.
It was too close.
It was too close, yeah. But it was if you want to call it Easter, you want to call it Easter.
Tried.
But yeah.
We tried.
But it wasn't an Easter we would know what Easter is.
Right.
But I'm very lucky that nobody, I'm going to knock on wood, in my family got sick.
No one's gotten sick yet.
Yeah.
So family's been a super important thing for both of you personally, and you mentioned that kids, parents, like families have been hit, you feel like have been hit the hardest, and that's exactly who you spend all your time with. What are like some of the most significant changes in clients or students that you've seen? And maybe I'll add on, like, do you feel like you're unique in having like that kind of family support system, or have you seen that serving other people well too?
I actually don't think I was unique. I feel like, I mean, I know that there's a population of people who didn't have people, like there were actual people who had no one throughout the pandemic, but I feel like a lot of the people I interacted with, there were family members and friends that they could, not everyone, that they could call on, but I think that family structure, because people were truly afraid to go anywhere else, and I think they knew family only. If I want to see my family, I have to stay home. I think for me, but for my teenagers, like, they don't, not that they don't love their family, but they, you know, at that age, you need to be around your peers. And I think for them, they're just like, why can't I go to a basketball game? Why can't we just go hang out in the park for a little bit, Tonette? And I'm like, I would love to tell you to go and do that, but you cannot, for the safety of your grandmother or whoever's in the family. I think for the teenagers, because I feel like we could have adapted, right? We knew, like, all right, we just have to do what we have to do. But kids and teenagers didn't understand, like, why can't I go play? Like, why won't you allow me? Even though the safety was there, I think they still couldn't cope with that, if that's what you were asking.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what I agree. Like, I think it was so hard for them, and it still is. But living downtown, I saw a lot of kids though, like walking, like going outside and walking, like, you know, that time that we were off, they were out walking, but I don't I can't say if they were walking with their siblings or if they were walking with other friends, like, you know, and at the time masks weren't, at the beginning masks weren't important. Like we didn't know anything about wearing a mask, but, and then all of a sudden they came on that we had to wear a mask, but, you know, but I think, you know, they you know, some of them still, like some of them were really good, like ones that I talked to, like they're like, I haven't gone anywhere, like I'm staying home with my family, like at the beginning and even into like the time of when school even started, like I haven't gone anywhere, like we didn't go on vacation, we didn't do anything, you know. And then there were some that, oh yeah, I went, some who worked had to go to work, even though, you know, they were, I mean, because if they worked at a grocery store, if they worked like different places like that, they worked. But some were like, oh yeah, I saw my boyfriend all the time. I'm like, oh, okay, you didn't care about your family? Oh, they knew, that was okay. I was like, oh, okay. You know, like, it just depended. And then some, you know, it just all depends. But yeah, they just, scary.
Someone asked, do you think our students have lost a year of learning, and can that be made up this summer?
Honestly, I have a feeling they lost some. I'm not gonna say they lost. I mean, depending on grade level, depending on where, if we're talking elementary, middle, high, I think some have lost, yes. I'm hoping they can make it up, you know. I know working with some kids, you know, I do, like some kids will come and ask me questions, or, you know, I do different things with the different clubs. I do work with kids, you know, other ways. And now if some kids are really, you know, if they've always struggled, they're really gonna lose and struggle. And I'm hoping there is some summer program or something for them in the summer, you know, and I'm not Beaver Falls, but all over, because I think it's every district is in the same boat, and every county and every state is in the same boat. So I'm speaking as a teacher, and I'm speaking as an educator, you know, and for every student that, yeah, I feel they have lost, and hopefully there is something in the summertime that will help them get caught up in some way. You know, whether it will be a whole, you know, I can't say it's going to be a whole year, and I'm sure they're not that far behind, but, you know, I'm hoping there's something that will happen in the summertime for every student everywhere, you know. But then again, it all depends on if, you know, there's funding, and it all depends also if there's parents and students willing to go too, because that's another thing. So I hope I answered their question.
Yeah. I'm going to ask one more question just for time. I feel like trying to keep this within our time frame. But as you think about Beaver Falls, like as a whole, as a community, personally, I have felt it just feels weird, and winter's exacerbated it, but like I feel like people are out walking less, and I just feel like I see people less. That's one of the biggest things that I've like just noticed for the community as a whole. What do you imagine or see in the upcoming, like in the future, moving forward? And do you have any thoughts on how do we operate well as a community in this crazy time and with whatever comes ahead? That's really broad, I'm sorry. But looking for some direction in life.
You go first. Go ahead. Tackle that.
So the first part was how has it affected the community, basically?
Well, I guess, yeah, I was thinking about how I've seen it affect the community, but yeah, what community as a whole, to me it feels like it's less there. How do we like function together?
How can we bring it
right
back?
now, I guess.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, yeah, I agree. It's less. There are less people out and about. I think we have lost a few businesses. Hopefully they're just maybe shut down for right now and maybe come back, hopefully. I think maybe because of the economy, like there are less people out going about walking or shopping or in, you know.
Yeah.
I'm just hopefully in the winter, winter months is bad. Summer, I really, you know, it's so hard because, I mean, yeah, I live downtown but, you know, I don't walk. I mean, I walk, but I walk the track or, you know, on 6th Avenue or, you know, different things like that. So, I mean, housing wise, I mean, community, people are moving, but I think people are moving in too. I mean, I think there's a revolving door that way. I just think that with the economy the way it is and people have lost jobs because of COVID, I think that could be that's a reason why, you know, there's less people out and about shopping downtown, and there's, you know, because of loss of some of the businesses. I'm just hoping maybe with, you know, COVID, hopefully, I don't want to say going away, but the change and, you know, with the numbers being dropped and, you know, with people getting vaccinated and things changing, hopefully that will change and maybe more businesses will start coming in or reopening or different things like that, because I have noticed some of the businesses leaving.
Right.
Because, well, you know, they couldn't afford being open because they weren't allowed to be open. So then why pay, how can you pay rent if you can't be open?
Right.
So
Right.
I hope that kind of answered your question. Okay.
I would probably say, to add to that, I think the social aspect, and I'm an introvert, so like at first this was cool for me being at home like this, but even as an introvert, I'm like, enough. Like, I think if there are safe ways that we can make outdoor events available, and I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if that means in the field we have some stuff where people can social distance and be around, but I think when this weather gets warm, people are coming out. We already know that. And I live on College Hill and people walk every day, even in the cold, but I mean like today. I'm like, there's a dog here, there's a dog there. I think people need something, we need something to do too. And I'm not saying that that's the community needs to do that. I mean, I think we just need to come up with creative, because I feel like we've seen on social media throughout the year, people have found creative ways to still meet and social distance and do things. And I think that would be so good for our kids. That would be good for parents. Like, I think people need to be around people right now. And that's an introvert, wherever the camera is. That's an introvert saying that, because usually I'm like, I want to be alone. People are too much. But I think it comes down to that, we need that connection again outside of who's in our household and what we're doing for work and things. You know, and you asked another part, or was that it?
No, that's good. Okay. That's it. I'll try to narrow down my questions a little bit.
I agree, because there would be, I mean, people probably would come out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've talked to more neighbors outside than I probably would have if I was just driving my car going back and forth to work. I know everyone on my block now, you know, so.
Well, that's some good news. That's some good news, yeah.
Neighborly.
I really want to like ask a bunch more questions, but I'm not allowed to do that. So thank you both for being here. I have little thank you gifts from the CDC, notes and cookies from Beaver Falls Coffee and Tea Company.
Thank you so much.
Classic for the lecture series.
Oh, a matcha green tea cookie. Wow.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah, thanks so much for joining and sharing your thoughts and insights and just kind of how this experience has been for you as well. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Our next lecture series will be in 2 weeks, March 24th, and we'll be talking actually with some of the local business owners. So perfect segue in. Thanks for joining us tonight.